What makes a game great? Well, I personally think the best games aren't really games at all, or at least they don't feel like games. I want to know what about a game can make me want to play it over and over again without getting tired of it. I want to know why a story can send me on an emotional roller coaster but still feel so grounded and clear. And why can a combat system feel both like I'm watching a movie scene but also feel challenging while I play it? What makes the main and side characters feel so compelling? What makes the story feel so real? Ghost of Tsushima is one of my top 3 games that I've ever played. In my opinion, it's like a 10 out of 10 game with few flaws and infinite upsides. I've completed the game 100% 4 times. Okay, well, hear me out. I don't know why that's a thing that I do. If I find a game that I like, I will play it as many times as I can without getting tired of it. And every time I feel the magic all over again, and I never get tired of it. So in honor of me actually continuing with videos, I wanted it to be a big one. Now I have no idea where this is going, and I can say in hindsight, it was a disaster. It took me like a month to write this script. I don't know what was going on. There's just a lot. But I know this will be more in-depth than the other videos I've done so far because this game truly deserves that. There will be definitely spoilers, which I normally don't have, but there's just a lot to cover and I definitely want to cover it. So I don't even want to introduce this video anymore. I just want to start right now. And without hindsight, I really hope this goes well. Like I said, it did not. So sit back and relax and we're going to talk about Ghost of Tsushima. So when I do these videos, I usually break them down into like story, combat, side content, characters, collectibles, whatever. But this game is so huge, I actually have no idea how to break all of that down into sections, especially with how long the story is and how much I want to cover with it. So I guess we're gonna cross the bridge when I get to it. But in my head, it all makes sense. But we're just gonna do it. So the story. Ghost of Tsushima starts out in the year 1274, where a Mongol invasion begins on the Japanese island of Tsushima. And despite what I originally thought, this game is actually based on a real-life Mongol invasion of that year, but it's a heavily fictionalized version of the event. But anyways, Khotan Khan, the leader of this Mongol invasion, is just this horrible and like purely evil man, like no redeeming qualities at all. And I know that's like not controversial, but it's not very common for evil characters to just be evil. Like Frieza from Dragon Ball, he's just evil. Like there's nothing in his past. It's not like, oh, like I had a rough like no rough childhood, nothing like that. He's just a horrible person. That's how he is in this game. He's just a power-hungry tyrant. You'll learn more about that. If you haven't played the game already, please do it, because I don't want to spoil it all, but if you have played the game, you know exactly what I'm talking about. The defenders of Tsushima at the time were made up of only 80 samurai from various different clans, and we're basically on a mission of no return, if you're picking up what I'm putting down. Amongst these samurais is Jinsakai, the character you play as, and he is the nephew of the Jito, Lord Shimura, and the head of his clan due to the death of his father, which we'll definitely get into later on. This attempt at defending their home goes about as poorly as you could think, with 80 samurai versus hundreds of Mongol invaders. It was pretty much an ass whooping. Like, if it just gets to the point where it's only you and Lord Shimura who remain. At some point, Jin is like blown up, and I don't exactly remember exactly what like was the finishing blow for him at that point, but it was either that or getting shot. But he gets injured pretty badly, and he later wakes up after being saved by a thief named Yuna. And their dynamic is very interesting, especially at the start, but at the end, it's definitely, just hang on. Jin finds out that Lord Shimura was kidnapped by the Khan and is taken to Castle Canada. It's at this point that you and Yuna go back to get your sword and armor, which she traded for food. She's a thief, we had to get that across. And you manage to retrieve it, and you enter Jin's first of many flashbacks. And I love that the game uses flashbacks this way to really drive home exactly what Jin's thinking and a lot of what his motivations are and his hesitations are as well. These flashbacks take place during some pretty big milestones during your journey, but this first one acts as a combat tutorial, and it shows you basics like attacking, dodging, blocking, and parrying, but it also gives you a bit of insight as to where Jin's personality sort of stems from. And he's a samurai after all, and that comes with heavy burdens in itself, and especially being a part of a clan that he is. But we later learn that there's even more events that have helped Jin become who he is. In this first flashback, Jin is a bit emotional and a bit frantic, and he's just angrily swinging his blade, and he's upset about how weak he perceives himself and how others may perceive himself as well. Lord Shimura helps guide him in the right direction. He also reminds us of the samurai virtues, which are loyalty to your lord, control over your emotions, and most importantly, honor, and honor is a huge overarching theme, struggle, whatever you want to call it, of this game. And honor is basically fighting bravely and fairly and showing respect to all your enemies and never stabbing an enemy in the back, which is going to cause some issues. And it's just going to haunt Jin as the story goes on. Back to the present, Jin and Yuna manage to reach the Khan on the bridge, and after a very one-sided battle, Jin is thrown off of the bridge. And after falling to what many think is his death, he is greeted by another flashback as he passes out. In his mind, he states that he's failed again before we see a flashback to his father being killed in front of his eyes. And his father is asking Jin for help as he's hiding, which, I mean, it genuinely, I don't think he could have done anything to help. Like, if he had went to help his dad, he probably also would have died. But I guess that in a samurai's eyes, it's like an honorable death. But Jin obviously was hiding. He didn't go help him, and his father was killed. And like I was saying, this really shouldn't affect him that much because there was nothing he could do, but it really does affect him. Like, it's a mountain that he's struggling to climb over at all times. And he feels like he's a failed samurai. He then meets Lord Shimura at his father's funeral, still in a flashback. And he says that he feels like a coward, then he couldn't save him. And Lord Shimura, not helping, mind you, doesn't help at all. Like, just not even consoling him, not saying like, oh, I'm sorry. Just like, nope, you're a samurai. You gotta move on, brother. And he's just clearly not the best at consoling people, but that's the emotionless aspect of being a samurai that he's hammering into Jin's mind. And because of that answer, I don't think Jin really gets the closure that he needs. I mean, like, he may be a samurai, but in his head, he's a failed one. Shimura then tells Jin that his father's spirit lays within the blade, and that he is always with him, which leads to one of the coolest mechanics in the game. After Jin comes to, you see that the wind is guiding you where you need to go, which is his father basically being with him, telling him what he needs to do on his mission. Which I guess when you look at it that way, it could also be like his father is kind of on his side with the decisions that he makes later on in the game, but we'll get to those decisions later. You can trigger this by swiping up on the screen. I don't know what it's called. I want to say the D-pad, but I don't think it is. The touchpad. I don't know how that works on PC. Because there's no touchpad, but whatever. Maybe it's like the scroll thing, but compared to other regular maps, it's really cool. It's really immersive because you don't have to keep opening the map, even though I do, because I played the game so many times. I kind of just want to get to where I need to get to. But the first time that I played it, it definitely is super immersive because you can just swipe and you don't have to see the map. You're just in the game, like you don't get taken out of it. Jin then catches up with Yuna and she tells him that her brother is being held in a camp and she wants your help, and she saved your life, so obviously you're going to want to like pay her back for that. During the mission, Yuna stressed that we need to be quiet so the Mongols don't kill the prisoners, as obviously that would be an issue. And this deeply conflicts Jin, as stabbing an enemy in the back is the lowest and most dishonorable thing that he can do. And this is what I consider to be the beginning of Jin's path towards becoming the ghost. Jin stabs the unsuspecting Mongol quite badly, I might add. I mean, it is his first attempt at doing so, but it is really like, it's rough. Like, it really is not the cleanest assassination you'll ever see. But it's cool because this leads to another flashback that Jin has, which is just really like messing with his mind. It's a flashback that again is just harping on the importance of being honorable and not stabbing your enemies in the back and just doing the samurai thing, following the samurai code. Jin is just trying to convince himself that there is no other way, but his uncle would tell them that there is always a way and it is never the path that he decided to take. Obviously, Yuna is saying otherwise. Yuna thinks that there was no, like, Yuna is on Jin's side with this. She's like, it's kind of pointless to follow that samurai code right now, especially during war, because during war, it's kind of like all bets are off. She's just one of the many characters that Jin meets that helps him realize that he needs to kind of take another path to win this war. It's also worth noting that during, I don't know what the trigger for it is, but I think maybe an aerial assassination, but it's a certain number of assassinations. Another flashback comes and it's the same flashback as before when Lord Shimmer's talking about honor. And then at the end of the flashback, Jin is like, I'm sorry, uncle, like, this needs to be done to help our people. Not only is the gameplay, but the emotion as well is just very immersive. Like, you are there, you are in it. Ghost of Tsushima made me feel so bad for performing assassinations in these games, especially at first, whether they're the missions or like just regular assassinations when you're clearing out camps. Like, I genuinely felt bad for it because I was like, I'm sorry, Jin, like, we have to do this. We have to keep going. The game just does an amazing job putting you into this horrible event. Like, any emotion that Jin feels, you're also feeling with him. But while your reactions may be stronger, Jin's samurai training restrains his emotions, well, at least at first, because like towards the end, it's kind of, you know. Anyways, back to the story. Yuna's brother wasn't actually in that camp, but they do find some supply lines that lead them to believe he's in Osmo Bay. At this point, Jin goes to get help from some of his friends and allies, and they also, like I said, truly shape Jin to become the person that he is at the end of the game. And I'm going to talk a little bit about some of them right now. First, I'm going to talk about Sensei Ishikawa, and he's a famous archer who teaches the way of the bow to the two worst people that he could probably teach them to. One person he taught, he tried to lead a rebellion to take control of his clan, and the other girl was a girl named Tomoe, who we find out turned against Sensei Ishikawa and is now helping the Mongols. And Sensei Ishikawa's missions are you and him tracking her down, but also trying to figure out her motives, because there's a lot of gray areas, there's a lot of confusion amongst like what exactly is going on, why she left, how could she have turned this way. Unfortunately, Tomoe was a bit of a prodigy under Ishikawa and is one of the most skilled archers in all of Tsushima, rivaling even him, and is painted out to be this absolute monster. And she is, like, when you see the things that she's done, you're like, oh my god, she's a horrible person, we have to kill her. This game makes you, it just confuses you so much, because at first you're like, oh my god, she's literally killing innocent people, but at the end you're kind of like, well, I don't know, it's weird to say that now. Like, if you've played the game, that makes sense, but if you haven't, you're probably like, she's insane. She began teaching the Mongols the way of the bow, but things aren't adding up, like I said, and the more you progress, the more you realize Ishikawa is kind of an asshole. Not even as you progress, you kind of immediately notice that about him. And he's the one who actually drove Tomoe to leave and had planned to kill her after learning she was working with assassins. And he even uses his harsh teachings on Jin, leading him into ambushes, and even worse, he uses common people as bait. There's this one mission where we see a common peasant woman. I don't really like saying that, but that's what it's literally like peasant woman is the name that she has in the subtitles. He sends her to scout for him, to scout like where Tomoe is, like where her archers are. And then you get to her, she's like, oh, I'm so sorry. And you're like, girlie, it's okay. Like, what is going on? And she's like, she said that when the samurai showed up, I would die. And then you're like, oh, like what? And then she dies. She gets shot out of the freaking sky by the archers on the hill. And you're like, why would he send this innocent woman to do that when he could do it himself, or send Jin to do it? Like, why are you endangering innocent people's lives? It's like, who's really like good here? Because he's no better than what the Mongols are doing. You're very conflicted. I did not like him for a lot of the story. He's a cool person, but like, he's such an asshole. It's even weirder when you actually meet Tomoe, who's pretending to be this woman named Matsu, and she seems very kind. I don't know if there's any Naruto fans, but it's like when Naruto met Haku out in the forest and they were like buddy, and he didn't know that it was actually Haku that he was talking to, and it was like a completely different person that he was talking. That's literally exactly what this mission reminds me of. It's like Tomoe is this nice woman who seems very sweet, very down to earth. She has plenty of opportunities to kill Jin if she really wanted to, but she didn't do it. And she explains that she just wants a chance at a new life. Once we actually well, apparently Jin said he knew the entire time. I don't think he did, because he was kind of flirting with her. It was very weird. I don't know if he was trying to get off guard, but then he's like, oh, I actually knew you were Tomoe the entire time. I should kill you right now. I really should. But he doesn't. He leaves. She lets him leave. It's weird. It's like, why would she that's the perfect opportunity to take out the most powerful swordsman in the entire world, but she doesn't do it. So now we're even more confused. This tale is definitely a difficult one for Jin, because he truly doesn't know who to trust, and he doesn't fully trust either one of them. It just shows how gray things can be in times of war, and there's no simply good or bad, and they're both unreliable narrators, which is very clear. And every story you get from them is just slightly different. Like, yes, Tomoe is wrong, but she also claims she's just trying to keep herself alive. And I feel like Sensei Ishikawa would have done the exact same things that she was doing, and we've seen that he's done horrible things as well. He also had thoughts of sacrificing an entire village just to find Tomoe. So it's like he literally would do the exact same things that she's doing. So it's weird to bash her and try to be upset with her for the things that he's done to his own people. Ishikawa is technically right to catch her and make her pay for what she's done, but he isn't right to blame her for the cruelty. It's just interesting to think about, for sure. Okay, next we're gonna talk about Lady Masako. And as much as I love her, she's such a girl boss. She's one of my favorite, I think she might be one of my favorite characters of the game. Top 3, maybe. But her story is so painful. It's just full of suffering and revenge, and it's so heartbreaking to go through, but it is, I think, my favorite of the side characters' missions. So we learn that her entire family is massacred, and she is the only survivor, and she has no idea why this has happened. Jin finds her burying her relatives, children included, and Jin agrees to help her avenge her family, and in turn she will help him in his own journey. It's just confusion after betrayal, after pain, And first she suspects a monk, and before he can be questioned, she just kills him, like no questions asked. So we don't learn anything from him, and Jin is very upset about this. He's like, you could have learned something from him. You don't have to resort to violence and revenge and this and that. She then goes after these two sons of Clan Adachi's supplier, who had been planning to conspire against them by supplying the weapons used in their family's deaths. And they end up being killed in a setup, so we don't learn anything from them. And then she kills a fisherman who did deserve it. After all, he killed his family, so he deserved that one. Like, that one made sense. She also confronts her former lover, who's a woman named Mai, who used to work for the family, and Masako banished her. I'm not sure why. I don't remember why she banished her. I think they were found out, like, their relationship, and that would have been not good. Not only because, like, she was cheating on her husband, but also because it was with a woman, so like double whammy, not good, especially in the 1200s. Are you kidding? It's just like so much this poor woman is going through, as if losing her family wasn't bad enough. She also questions Jin's disagreement with her methods. Jin believes revenge is not the answer, especially not the way she goes about it. But then Masako asks Jin if he wants revenge for his own father's death, which obviously as a samurai he shouldn't be fueled by those things. But as he sees the path Masako is led down, I can't help but think that Jin was also like, would this help me get my own closure with my father's death? Like, who did it? Like, should I go out trying to find that? It's interesting to think about, especially since revenge is definitely something Jin should be allowed to like partake in. You partake in revenge, whatever, like, with what he's gone through. But it's interesting to think about for sure. And like I said, it's like just building on his character, making him more and more into the ghost persona that he will become. You also end up finding out at the end of her tale that it was her sister that killed her entire family. Not good. Her motive did make sense because she had to basically end up being with this man that she didn't want to be with, and Lady Masako, being the younger, wasn't actually supposed to like marry into this like Adachi clan, but she did because there was this ambush that happened, and Masako ended up defending the family and everyone there until like he showed up and he was like, oh, I want her, she can fight. And then the other sister, she ended up getting like this little tiny man. I don't know what, like, I guess he was like abusive. I don't know exactly what he did, but it was just not good. And she blames Masako for taking the man, even though she stood up for the fam. I don't know. The motive was there. It just didn't make sense. Jin ends up coming around and saying revenge is her right and is like, kill her. Like, you absolutely are right for doing this. And like I said, it just changes his, like, from the beginning when he was like, this is the wrong path, to the end where he's like, oh, absolutely, like, she's done. I just love her tale so much, and I feel so bad for her. And she is such a girl boss. Every time she comes into the fight and I see her, I'm like, oh my god, period, she's here. Like, we're saved. The last character we're gonna talk about right now is Ryuzo. I actually hate him, but I'm supposed to hate him, but like, she's a flip. I hate this dude. When you first meet him, he's with this straw hat Ronin, and they're poor, like dirt poor. They don't have food, money, anything. And Ryuzo is really apprehensive towards Jin, even though Jin's like, oh my god, we're besties, like we're good friends, we're childhood friends. And you learn that Jin actually beat Ryuzo in a duel, which was a duel that would have got Ryuzo a place as a samurai, and since Jin beat him, like, Ryuzo had to leave. I don't know if he had to leave necessarily, but it's kind of an embarrassment for him and his family, I guess, at the time. And Ryuzo's like, you should have let me win, like, you were already gonna be the head of the Sakai clan no matter if you won or lost. But as a samurai, that's already the wrong mindset to have. So I don't think Ryuzo could have been a samurai even if he wanted to, because there's no way he would have wanted Jin to forfeit that fight. I feel like Jin, doesn't matter who Jin was facing. It could have been his mother. It could have been like an elderly 80-year-old woman. Jin would have clocked her immediately. That's just the kind of person Jin is, and that's why he's such a good fighter. Ryuzo still holds that against Jin, like, to this day, even though Jin is like, we can get you a spot in the samurai. If you help me, you can get this, like, you can live in the Shimura estate, like, you can be a samurai, you can get a place in the army. But I don't think, I mean, I guess that's just not enough for him. Like, he's still so mad at Jin for something that has happened years ago. It's just like, why are you still mad? Jin is offering to help you. You can see that Jin is super powerful. Like, help him, get the money, help your men. I don't know. It just doesn't make much sense to me. But we're gonna get to him because that's not even the only reason why I hate him. If you played the game, you know why. Him alone leads to so much bullshit. It's just so bad, but we're gonna get to that. Okay, back to the story. Like I said before, Yuna and Jin realize her brother Taka is in Azamo Bay, and as a blacksmith, he can help Jin scale Castle Canada so he can save his uncle, because he's gonna be able to make something. He ends up making like this hook that Jin can climb with, but we're gonna get to that. They sneak into Azamo Bay, and with Kenji's help, who's this sake merchant, he's like he's really not good at helping people, but he gets better at it. He does. He tries his best, but he also gets people into a lot of bad situations because he tries to like play the Mongols and like give them fake sake and like make money off of them. It doesn't ever really go well, but he does help them sneak in. He helps them sneak in a sake cart, and they have to pass through like the gates and stuff. And they don't care. It's alcohol. They don't care. They'll let him in. So it's also where I like to talk about these stealth missions and the like don't raise the alarm missions, which is not a like uncommon thing. It's just not a thing that I've ever really liked. And there is a lot of them. I definitely think they're necessary. Like I said, and compared to other games, they aren't used as much. It's definitely not as played out as a lot of other games make it, but it just makes sense narratively, and they're not really too difficult. A lot of the times the enemies are on certain paths that you won't really cross them anyways. Obviously you're gonna have to assassinate a few of them, and Jin's probably not gonna like that. It's gonna be pretty simple for the most part, especially when you're using some of the charms or some of the armor that makes the enemy detection a lot slower. Taka would be killed if his sister was seen infiltrating the camp and killing Mongols. Like that just makes sense. Like you can't just go like guns a-blazing, like they're gonna end up, like narratively they would kill him, and we can't have that. Anyways, they end up saving Taka and they take him to Komatsu Forge, which happens to be overrun by Mongols. So Jin and Yuna are fighting them all off, also while taking the townspeople to safety. And this whole battle, I would say, is really a changing point for Jin, because this is where the ghost moniker first shows up. And Yuna is the one who ended up giving him that moniker, because the people were kind of scared of him because the way he was fighting was very like demonic. They were saying he was a vengeful spirit, and Yuna's like, yeah, he is a vengeful spirit, and he's here to take vengeance on the Mongols. He's here to save you guys. He's the ghost. I thought that was hard. Jin didn't really like it at first. He was like fairy tales. It's kind of, I'm not a ghost. But Yuna's like, we need to give the people something to believe in, and that's the most important thing during these types of times where everything is so hopeless and lost. You need something to like cling on to. And if you haven't picked it up, this is the Ghost of Tsushima. Whoa, there's a thing. Like that's yeah. And like I said, at first Jin is not a fan, but over time he really grows to embody the persona, and people are like, he's like a 10-foot tall demon with glowing eyes, and he may not look like it, but he genuinely is. Like with the sword, Jin is a demon. Like it is kind of insane, especially playing as him. It's like you feel so powerful because Jin is. Anyways, Taka is then able to create a grappling hook, which is one of my favorite mechanics in the game, which allows Jin to scale the cliffside and infiltrate Castle Canada. It will allow him to do so. You're always able to see where you can grapple as they're marked with these like white flags, but they're always pretty inconspicuous and blend in with surroundings. Obviously it's not like a parkour based game, so you can't climb everything, but most cliffs are marked in different shades, so you know where to grab. There were times when I think I would be able to grab onto something, and then like Jin would just fall to his death, and it would be like really weird. I guess it was some sort of glitch, like just some glitchy stuff like that. It wasn't often, but there were times when I was like, oh, I should have been able to grab that, but he kind of just like, it's this running animation he does, and he just like falls into the abyss. Anyways, back to the hook. It makes traversal and climbing things so much more fun, and allows you to swing from certain supports and scale cliffs, and even pull off some cool aerial like swinging assassinations. I love doing that. I believe that the shrines, which are just one of the many like added little collections or like events that Jin can do, I think that really shows off the game's parkour the best, because the shrine is something you have to climb up to get, because the path to the shrine has been destroyed, you can assume, by the Mongols. So you have to do like go up the cliff side, you have to swing from beam to beam, supports, swing off branches, you know, grapple onto one tree, grapple to another. It's just, I really love doing them. Those are probably my favorite things to do. It just shows off the traversal and the parkour mechanics of this game. I always just enjoyed the fluidity and the creativity they used for each shrine. It wasn't repetitive. Like each shrine had its own little gimmick for climbing up it, and it was always creative. It wasn't really easy to get there. You had to kind of think about where you needed to go. As far as like the side little content things, there was also these Inari shrines, which are like fox dens, and I don't know what about them. I like the foxes are cute. No, I love seeing the foxes, but there were certain points where you were literally running to Timbuktu following this like fox to the shrine, and I felt like it took way too long to get there, especially from where you meet the fox, and then you end up like 60 meters away. Like it was just kind of insane to me sometimes, but I did enjoy them, and it felt like, especially just for like the little amount of progress you made to unlock more charm slots. And I didn't really use charms that much anyways. I did, but I never really switched them. I played around with it a little bit, but I never really used the charms. But yeah, the fox dens were fine. Like there's nothing like super wrong with him. I just thought it was a bit annoying at sometimes. There was also bamboo slicing, which is a fun little mini game to increase your resolve, which helps you heal and also helps you pull off special move attacks. There's also hot springs, which are nice to listen in on like Jin's inner monologue, because it asks what you want to reflect on, and you get to hear his reflection and what he's actually thinking and some of the regrets that he has, or maybe his thoughts about the future, or how he feels about his father's death. There are also haikus, which you find around the map, and you are basically writing about what they're telling you to reflect on. And I think these are really well done. I think they're really interesting interesting to do and then to see the poem you end up composing at the end, because you're like writing your own poem. You get 3 options for each line. So I do wish that there was more of a reward for actually the poems you ended up creating, whether different headbands you gave you different buffs, or whether the way you composed your poem would change the buffs or change the color of it. I just wish it was a little more personalized, because it is just, you get the same headband no matter what you make the poem. But there's my water. Where is my water? What the heck? Where's my water bottle at? Oh, I think I left it in the gym. Shoot. I don't remember what I was saying. I went to drink some water and I like lost my train of thought. I'm sorry if that was an incomplete sentence. Oh, the headbands. I just wish the impacts had a bigger impact on gameplay. Not like a huge impact, but I just wish like it felt like you were doing something other than just for cosmetics. But the game just does a good job of immersion, and it gives you things to discover because you follow these golden birds, and when you get close to one of these like events, the bird like flies and you follow it. So you don't have to like track it on the map. You can, but you don't have to. You can just follow the birds where you need to go. So you're literally just like discovering things on your own. And I think that's really interesting. Back to the story, Jin summons his comrades to infiltrate Castle Kaneda. However, Ryuzo is nowhere to be found, and like Jin's really disappointed, obviously, because where is my childhood best friend when in my time of need? Where is he? So they just have to continue the mission without him. So they go into the courtyard, fighting off the Mongols. And just as Jin gets outside the inner keep, he finds Ryuzo, and he's just there like drinking. And Ryuzo explains that there's a bounty that the Khan put on Jin's head, and he needs to feed his men, which is weird because Jin offered him the exact same thing. I guess the bounty must have been like gigantic for him to betray his entire country. So it must have been good money. Like, I mean, more power to you, but if the money was there, but I just don't think that's ever the solution. So Jin's childhood best friend ends up betraying him at the worst possible time during a war. I'm not even gonna try to like understand his point. Like, I'm trying. Like, his men needed food, but he was offered food from Jin, from the Shogun. Like, Lord Shimura is like hand in hand with the Shogun. You could get like whatever you wanted, whatever you needed, but you're gonna betray your country. I mean, period. No, like I've said it before. Why are you betraying your country for a little money, for a little cash, a little place to stay? You're gonna stay with the Mongols? You don't even speak Mongol. Like, you don't speak that language. You know those customs. You're just gonna betray. Like, what after that? What after you conquer the island? What is your game plan? What is the end goal? It just shows like he's lost it. He doesn't even know. He's lost all sense of morality. Like, what after Tsushima's conquered? You're just gonna live in this burned country that you helped burn, where you grew up. You're just gonna do that when you were offered a place to stay with Lord Shimura and Jin, your best friend? No? Okay, that's fine. If you can't tell, I'm pissed as hell, because what do you mean, like, I'm sorry, Jin, as if this isn't your choice? You have choices and you chose this. I understand that he didn't want a repeat of what happened at the beginning of the game with the 80 samurai, but like, that wouldn't happen again. After all that Jin did, by himself, mind you, to get the supply routes for the food and offer them shelter even before he helped Jin, it just shows that during war does change people, and it has changed Ryuzo. And Ryuzo genuinely wanted the best for his men, but I don't care, I still hate him. And in the duel that follows, he gets absolutely destroyed, and he like ends up running away and like being like, hey, Jin's right here, to the Mongols. He could have easily been like, sorry, Jin, my fault. That was dumb of me. Maybe we should like go back, kick it. Just pretend this didn't happen. I'll be, just a little lapse of judgment. After the alarm is raised by Ryuzo, Jin ends up finding Lord Shimura, who informs Jin that the Khan already left to conquer Castle Shimura, so that's even better. As they escape, Lord Shimura explains that he's heard of Jin's dishonorable acts and tells him to stop immediately. And he's understanding at first. He's like, oh, I understand, you were just trying to save me, but stop right now. No more of this can happen. Later on, he ends up showing like a lot of disgust towards it as they like talk. He like throws these like subtle shots, and it's just like, or get to it. So yeah, that is the conclusion of Act 1. So I didn't really have a transition. I really rushed. So I think when I'm editing, I'll probably add something in about Act 2 is horrible. Not gameplay wise, but it is truly horrible to go through in the best way, like in the worst way. It makes you feel ill at times, and it makes you feel terrible for the characters involved, but this is war, and when all seems to be going well, you're reminded that war is a terrible thing. So in order to retake Castle Shimura, Jin obviously needs help, and like obviously the people he's recruited before, but he also enlists the help of a warrior monk named Norio. And Norio's story is a powerful one. When you meet Norio, he's a kind-hearted monk, this really nice guy, easygoing, super sweet. He does not end up that way. After Lord Shimura and Jin clear out Fort Ito, where Norio was imprisoned, he tells Jin that his brother and leader Enjo is likely dead, as he was also captured. Norio is struggling badly with survivor's guilt, and it's just so hard to watch the light leave his eyes as he descends for... No, you're good. Anyways, like I was saying, it's just so hard to watch the light leave his eyes as he descends further and further into madness and rage. Later on, Norio and Jin infiltrate Cedar Temple where they find Enjo, and the look on Jin's like usually stoic face, and seeing like the distraught look that he has is so like what is he seeing right now? Like, is Enjo dead? Like, what's going on? And it's worse than that. He has no limbs. He's been tortured, beat up by the Mongols. It was honestly such a gut-wrenching scene that it made me sit back in silence while I was watching it, and Enjo asks Norio to mercy kill him, and Jin leads them to themselves. Afterwards, Norio finds out the general who's responsible, and against Jin's pleas, he goes off alone as he finally snaps. And I mean, that's obviously a point that would happen. That they were supposed to infiltrate the fort together, but Jin ended up falling asleep, and when he woke up, he sees that the fort is in flames, engulfed in flames, and he sees not only the Mongols running in fear, but other people and other monks, and they're saying like Norio has lost his mind and everyone is like terrified, everyone innocent and not burnt to a crisp. The sight is just horrible, and Jin is just walking through it mortified, and he was the one that was telling Norio that his revenge was justified. He sees now that war can turn even the kindest of monks into cold-blooded killers, and it's just not good. And Norio's like, I can't even go back to the life that I had before. He made his choice and he's okay with the choice he made, but he is also okay with the fact that he still can go back and he still can like see his people, but he will not be the same person that he was. And that's just something that happens during stuff like this, I guess. Back to the main story. The Khan has taken Castle Shimura, as we've already talked about, and I should also add that Ryuzo has like fully cemented the side that he's on, and he doesn't want to do it the way that he does, but he's officially at the point of no return because the Khan is yelling for the guards to open the gate of Castle Shimura so they can infiltrate it. And then he instructs Ryuzo after they are like, no, we're not opening the doors, like you're not getting in here. So he's like, Ryuzo, you want to earn your keep? How about you burn all these people that I have on these stakes until they let us in? Pretty simple. You want food for your men, that's what you have to do. And now it's like, I think Ryuzo's at this point where he's like, okay, I obviously made the wrong choice, but there's no going back now because I'm a traitor to my country. My men need food. I have to continue on this path that I've already forged for myself. So he does burn the innocent man, and it's horrible seeing Ryuzo's face and hearing the man screaming, and Ryuzo realizing the choice that he's made. And that's officially when he hits the point of no return because you can't go back after that. He's done the unthinkable. He's killed an innocent person. He also just breaks down in tears, and the Khan is like, oh, you have to keep going. They're not letting us in. So Ryuzo's like screaming at them to open the door, and they finally do open the door, and the Khan just walks in, like, and Ryuzo is just absolutely broken. And the way that the Khan is able to like strike fear into his opponents and allies, he's just like stone cold-blooded. The way he just carries himself just makes him so terrifying. But that's with that. Castle Shimura conquered by the Khan. Later on, Yuna and Taka lead Jin to Yarikawa, where they're from, and even though the people, mainly the ruler of Yarikawa, were apprehensive at first, Jin helps them defend their home from a Mongol siege. And after beheading the Mongol general that was leading the siege, Jin learns the ghost dance, and I love the ghost dance. I love all the stances in the game, and there's 4 of them, 5 of them if you include the ghost stance, and each stance works better against different enemies or weapons. The stone stance, for example, is the first stance that you have in the game, and it's effective against swordsmen, and it specializes in puncturing techniques, and later, like all of the stances, it can be upgraded to have different moves. The water stance is effective against shieldmen, and it specializes in a flurry of attacks to break down shields, and I personally love the flurry strike, which is achieved by holding triangle and after upgrading, hitting the triangle 5 times afterwards to unleash 5 swift attack. And the wind stance is effective against spears, which utilizes a typhoon kick to send your opponent flying, which I love doing. I think it's hilarious, and I think it looks really cool. And it specializes in stagger damage. The moon stance is effective against brutes, specializing in spinning attacks to offset enemies as well as staggering kicks. And the moon tornado looks so cool. It's just 3 spinning strikes, and it's so cool to watch Jin do and to perform. You unlock points for earning the stances by killing or observing Mongol leaders in camps you liberate. However, there are a lot of camps, like a lot. Even after you think you're done with the camps, you have to go back to the farmsteads and then liberate those camps. And every single section act of the game has more camps. I think in total was one area had 24, another area had like 15. I think in total there's like 40 plus camps easily. First playthrough, I loved going through the camps. I thought they were super fun, except when I had to go back to the farmsteads. I thought that was really repetitive. Second playthrough, third playthrough, fourth playthrough, not fun at all. I'm not gonna say I don't enjoy doing them. I just think they're really repetitive, and I find like stealthing through those camps to be kind of pointless because it just wastes time. There's other things in the story that you can be doing, other side missions, other quests that are more fun and more worth your while, because you can literally just go in, observe the leader, then just do what you need to do. Stealth is not really necessary. I mean, I did it at first, but then at the end of the day, I'm just like, I've done it before a million times. I don't want to do it a million more. So, but later on, the camps do change a little bit. There end up being these hawks later in the game that can spot you from your hiding position and alert enemies to your location. So that's cool. Unless you shoot the hawks out of the sky, then they can't do anything else about it. But back to the stances, the ghost stance isn't like the other stances. It's not like a stance that you can equip at any time. You have to kill 7 enemies in order to unlock the stance, and then once you unlock it, you can click R3 and L3, the sticks, at the same time, and you enter the stance, which is the first time I ever did it. It was insane because like the music changing, the way the audio is like muffled a bit, and like the echoing of the people screaming, the enemies falling to the ground, the black and white, every time you strike your enemy, the red flash of the screen. It's like Jin is becoming this terrifying, vengeful spirit that people think that he is. That's what I'm saying. Like, he may not look like it, but he is that vengeful spirit because he's that powerful as a swordsman, and he's really becoming the ghost at this point. I think once Jin unlocks his stance, it's like he's truly cemented that's who he is. I said that you had to kill 7 enemies. You have to kill 7 enemies without taking damage, and that number decreases if you're equipped with the ghost armor. Then it's 5 if you upgrade that all the way, and you can kill up to 3 enemies with 3 separate strikes, or if you're in a duel, 3 very powerful strikes. I just love the fluidity in switching stances as well as the different mechanics of each one. I honestly got used to it pretty quickly and found the combat so engaging but also visually impressive to watch. It almost looks like Jin's dancing around his enemies like he's untouchable because he is. And when you throw in the parrying and the dodging, which can be upgraded to have perfect variance, and Jin is easily the best swordsman I have ever played with, and it's the most fun to play with. He truly feels incredibly powerful. And you also have 2 bow and arrows, a long and a short bow, and with this you also have something called concentration, which slows enemies down for a period of time so you can get headshots or get different enemies in a fell swoop. I use archery a lot. It's pretty broken. Towards the end of the game, if it's upgraded your bows all the way, you can pretty much one-shot almost any enemy. If you use it correctly, you can pick off almost every enemy quickly and efficiently, and you later gain access to a poison blow dart gun, which leads to some issues, a lot of issues in fact. We're gonna come back to that because that is a very big plot point in the story. But you also have something called ghost weapons. Like I said, he's fully ghost right now. So ghost weapons, you have kunai, which they do what you think they do. They stagger enemies. You also have sticky bombs, which is a bomb that you throw and they hit enemies and they stick to them and blow up. It's telling you exactly what's going on. The black powder bomb is a bomb that deals damage over a large area. The smoke bomb makes you vanish. Everybody knows what a smoke bomb is. The wind chime is a lure. I think this is really interesting. I didn't use him as much in my past playthrough because, like I said, I wasn't using stealth as much because I'd played the game so much. So liberating the camps wasn't all that fun to do stealthily. And you also have a firecracker, which is like the upgraded version of the chime, which lures more enemies to a certain area. And all of these things can be upgraded to have different effects or doing more damage. Another aspect of combat is the standoffs, and I love the standoffs. I don't think I've ever seen anything like this in a game. It reminds me of when you watch a show where there's a swordsman and they are just standing there with their sword, and as soon as the enemy approaches them, they unsheath their sword really quick, and then the enemy just falls to the ground. That's what this is basically. You're holding triangle down and you're in a standoff with the enemy, and as soon as the enemy goes to swing their weapon, that's when you release triangle and then you slice them. And I think it's super cool, and especially since Jin is send your best warrior, send your best fighter, come face me. And he just exudes so much confidence and power. I love playing with Jin so much. If you strike too early, then you almost die immediately every single time that happens. And the enemies can also pump fake. I don't know what the word is, feint when they fake attack you, and if you do that, then you will also almost die, so don't do that. The sound design also, when you're slicing through the enemies in slow motion turning to your next enemy that you're slicing in the standoff. When you upgrade your standoff streak, it can be up to 5 with a certain piece of armor. So when you're going from enemy to enemy, the sound design, the way the camera moves, I just love it. Everything about it is chef's kiss. And another thing I want to talk about right now is mythic tales, and they allow you to unlock new special techniques or armor. You find them by encountering musicians and hearing their story, and I love the visuals and the music for these tales. They're my favorite side quests in the game, all of them. I want to talk about every single one of them, but I can't because that would be its own video talking about all the mythic tales. So I'm just going to highlight some of my favorites. Firstly, the Heavenly Strike, which is the first one that I did. You find the musician surrounded by dead bodies, and he tells you this tale of Shigenori's Heavenly Strike, and he sends Jin to track down a retainer for the Yarikawa clan clan, and Jin finds Shigenori's rest, which can be found by following the lightning storm, which is really cool also. And after finding this, a duel begins with a retainer, and Jin is able to quickly learn the Heavenly Strike from watching him and dueling him. And it's a blazing fast attack that does a lot of damage, and it looks really cool. Another one that I really like is the 6 Blaze of Kojiro, which sends you on 6 duels around the map to gain the recognition of Kojiro, and he'll then grant you a duel with him. And defeating him gives you his Kensei armor, which I really like as well. And my favorite by far is the Spirit of Yarikawa's Vengeance, and I'll let this tale play out for a bit just so you can see like what I'm talking about with the visuals and the way he tells it in the music, so I'll play that.
But with Clan Sakai's aid, Shimura put down the rebellion and executed Lord Yarikawa. Before he died, the traitor vowed to avenge his conquered people from beyond the grave. Now they leave offerings to his spirit at shrines in old Yarikawa's ruins. They beg for their enemies to die, and the spirit of Yarikawa's vengeance answers their calls with the dance of wrath.
You then end up searching the area for smoke, and you see the shrines and people are praying to Yarikawa to do their bidding for them. And when you get to one of these like shrines, you find out that someone has prayed for you to be his next target. And as soon as you see that, a duel begins with the Spirit of Yarikawa's, vengeance. Yes, the Spirit of Yarikawa's vengeance, sorry. During the battle, Jin studies and learns the attack, which is 3 rapid attacks, which can be performed on different enemies at once, almost exactly like a dance, and is my favorite thing in the game to do. I know the Spirit of Yarikawa's vengeance hates to see me coming, because as soon as I get those 3 resolves, I will unleash it immediately without fail every time. The Undying Flame is also a cool mission as you race against time not to freeze to death. And one last tangent before we get back to the story, I want to talk about the armor, and I think all the armor in this game looks great. And not only do they all look super cool, but they have different effects that help in different ways. The Traveler's attire is good for hunting artifacts and records while also highlighting more of the map with travel. The Ronin attire is good for both stealth and offensive combat. The Ghost armor lowers the amount of enemies needed to be killed to unlock the Ghost stance and reduces enemy detection speed. Tadayori's armor is good in all aspects when it comes to ranged combat. The Sakai clan armor is good for offensive combat and also increases the standoff streak. And I'm not going to name all of them, but if I had to rank my favorites off the bat, it would definitely be the Ghost armor aesthetically. The Ghost armor is first. 2 is the Kensei armor. I don't know if that's controversial, but I love the way it looks. And 3 is the Sakai clan armor. The Mongol armor, get rid of it. Never put that on. Even though it like the Mongols won't attack you if they see you wearing it, not putting it on. I'm sorry, but I just cannot bring myself to wear it, especially after all the bullshit that they pulled during the game. I'm not putting that on. I'm sorry. The Traveler's attire is what I wore the most. It's a gripe that I have with this game, because if you're trying to collect all the banners and artifacts, which there are a lot of, you need to be wearing the Traveler's attire. And when you're in like 30 meters, I think you upgrade it to 60 meters, and if a collectible, a firefly begins buzzing in the direction of the collectible, so you know where to like go to find it. I just wish I could run around more often in the other armors instead of just this one, and I'd like to be able to actually wear and enjoy the other armors, which I ended up only switching for duels or certain battles or certain stealth missions. It's not a huge deal, but maybe the Traveler's attire should have like a significantly increased radius, and the other armor have something like 20 meters for the artifacts and the banners, just so you don't have to wear it to be able to find them. But it would just help so much more if you were wearing it. Like I said, it's not that big of a deal. So back to the story. Finally, longest tangent ever. Like I said, in hindsight, I probably could have divided this video up a little better, but I didn't, so here we are. Jin and Lord Shimura are able to send a message requesting help from the Shogun on the mainland, and he also tells Jin that he wants to formally adopt him. Yay! Even though this will definitely end badly. And he truly is like, you have to get rid of the ghost stuff. Like, if you want to be my son, no ghost. Jin then also leaves to reclaim his father's armor at Omi Village, and obviously this brings back a lot of memories for Jin. And he's also greeted by Yuriko, his old caretaker, who teaches him how to make poison. Like I said, the poison thing is going to be a very big issue later on, and just a bit, not too far, but it's like hinted at, like the poison isn't necessarily a good route to take, but Jin is like, this is all we have to do this, and it will bite him in the ass almost immediately. So back to Yuriko. Her side quest is so sad because Yuriko is alone and also suffering from some memory issues and sickness, and it's just something about like older people, it'll always get to me. While going on several of her side quests, she mistakes Jin for his father, telling him stories of young Jin, and Jin insists on getting her to a doctor, but she declines. She goes missing at one point, and Jin follows her footprints, and she tells him she saw her mother, and she then sits on the edge of a rock shrine. She tells Jin, which in her mind, he's Jin's father, so she is addressing him as such. And at this point, Jin isn't really correcting her. She tells him that the best day of her life was spending time with him after his mother passed, and asking if that makes her a bad person, that she like just was happy to spend more time with him, Jin's dad. And it's just, this quest just ripped my heart out. My God, I cried every single time that I played this quest, even though I knew it was gonna happen. And just hearing how happy that it made her, and looking back on it, she doesn't even know if she's allowed to be happy about it. And after this, she is looking over Tsushima with Jin, and she's saying like, it's getting dark, can you tell me what you see? And Jin tells like her what he's seeing, thinking, because she still thinks that it's Jin's dad. And then Jin is like, okay, what do you see? And you look over and she is no longer with us. And I am saying that in like the way that I just don't, it's just so much. Like when I tell you this story will rip your heart out, and seeing that she was happy, like able to pass peacefully and happy with the past and have that closure that it was okay. Oh, it's so sad, dude. Anyways, after learning how to make the poison from Yuriko and learning where Ryuzo is hiding, Jin meets Yuna and Taka, who are preparing to head for the mainland, because I mean they fulfilled their end of the bargain, like, and Lord Shimura held up to his end and said that they would get safe passage to the mainland if they helped him. And so they're saying their goodbyes, and he heads out to find Ryuzo, and he gets to the fort where Ryuzo's at, and then Taka comes running in on a horse like a knight in shining armor, and you're like, what are you doing here? And it's weird because Taka's usually timid and scared, and he's the one insisting on leading the Mongols away to give Jin an advantage. However, upon entering the fort, Jin sees Ryuzo, and Ryuzo set a trap for Jin. So like I said, Ryuzo's cooked at this point. And Jin ends up getting knocked unconscious, and when he wakes up, he's tied to a post, and he looks up and Taka's in front of him, also captured. And in my head, I'm like, okay, how did this happen? Because you left, you said you were gonna lead the Mongols away and go back to the camp, and Taka says that Jin was gone for so long that he got worried and ended up coming to look for him. I just really wish that he hadn't done it, because like I said, Act 2 is horrible, and this is when like things were going so well, and at this is the point where things go from going good to going as bad as they could go. The Khan appears, taunting Jin, and tells him the war can be over if Jin just surrenders. He turns to Taka, hands him his sword, and tells him to kill Jin. And Jin tells Taka to run, and he sees in Taka's eyes that Taka's planning something, and I know that it will not end well, but Taka ends up turning the sword on the Khan, and the Khan just cuts him down. And at this point, I'm like, it's over with. And in my head, I'm thinking like, Yuna, oh my God, Yuna's gonna be so upset. Taka, like, is Taka gonna die? Like, what's gonna happen? And the Khan beheads Taka and holds it up to Jin's face and is mocking him with it. And Jin is just horrified, and people always say that Jin's facial expressions like have such a lack of emotion, but this scene is a complete dichotomy of that statement, because watching his face and hearing his voice and hearing the way he screams, it is painful to go through that with him and to see how he's reacting to these things, especially with the way that he normally carries himself as very stoic. And then Jin ends up passing out, and he wakes up later, and he's able to escape. And at this point, after he escaped, I was killing every Straw Hat Ronin I saw in my sight, because I was just so upset with him at that point with Ryuzo. So like everyone was getting it literally. Like no more assassinations at this point. I would be surprised if I did an assassination after this mission. And then Yuna shows up, and like at the worst time, she shows up at the door of the fort. She runs up to Jin. She's like, oh my God, I'm glad you're okay. We were worried. You took so long to come back. And Taka ran off to like come save you. And where is he? And Jin does not say anything. He just shakes his head. Yuna immediately knowing what that means, but she doesn't know the extent of what it means. So Yuna's running past Jin, and Jin's like, please do not go, like come back. Then you just hear a scream. Initially, she's really mad at Jin because Taka just wanted so badly to be like Jin. She kind of blames Jin for letting Taka do that, but then she's like, I know Taka just did it himself, like it's not your fault. She finds only a slight bit of peace knowing that Taka was brave in the end. And after killing all the Mongols and the reinforcements, they end up escaping. So after that, Jin regroups with Lord Shimura to plan an attack, and he just, it's like bad mouthing Yuna, who happened to show up and help after her brother died, realizing she lost everything and there was no point of her going back to the mainland. It's just like, why he's bad mouthing her and saying like, oh, she's probably making you do these things, this and that. Read the room. If reading the room was a person, Lord Shimura would have never met them. The Shogun's reinforcements are also present, and while things do go well at first with the attack on the Castle Shimura, at one point Lord Shimura stupidly leads a lot of the samurai to their death, sending them over a bridge which is blown up by the Mongols, which was very obviously gonna happen. Jin is pissed. He's furious. And Shimura is being stubborn and criticizes Jin for his ghost-like thinking. And then he slaps Jin after he messed up. And he's like, wait, Jin, I didn't mean it. Jin is pissed. At this point, Jin is like, no, we're like, that's it. We're done with that. Basically, him and Shimura are done. That was like the straw that created the ghost moniker to cut off the camel's back. The straw that cut the thread. After that, Jin goes to Yuna to propose a plan to poison the Khan's milk with the poison that he learned from Yuriko to kill all the Mongols that way. Yuna's the one who's kind of questioning that decision, which is weird because earlier on in the game, it would have been the other way around with Jin questioning Yuna's tactics. Like I said, Jin is really changing as a person at this point and becoming the ghost. And after poisoning them in a terrifying scene with Jin literally emerging from the shadow, Jin finds Ryuzo. And at this point, both Jin and myself are furious. And after this very one-sided duel, Jin easily gets the better of Ryuzo, who is begging Jin to lie and tell people he was a spy. Like, you had so many opportunities to stay on the right side, the side of the ghost, the side of Jinsakai, the best samurai in the freaking world, but you didn't do it, so not gonna happen. So Jin says goodbye to his friend and kills him. And I think it would have been cool to have that option to actually kill or spare him. I would have killed him regardless, but it would have been a cool option to have. Like, maybe Ryuzo could come and help in the final battle or something like that, or serve his time in jail. Maybe he could come back in later quests. But yeah, like I said, Jin says goodbye to his friend and leaves. As Jin and Yuna are leaving the area, Lord Shimura and the samurai show up, and seeing what Jin has done, Lord Shimura is absolutely disgusted and appalled, and he grabs Jin and begs him to blame Yuna for this. Little does he know, Jin was the mastermind behind the entire plan. I mean, maybe he does know that. Maybe he was just trying to save his nephew's honor. Because that's all Lord Shimura cares about, is honor, and Jin says no. The whole adoption thing, like, Lord Shimura dramatically drops the adoption papers into the fire, and then ends up telling Yuna that she has to continue on this fight without him, and he ends up getting apprehended by the samurai and taken to jail. Yeah, like, he's just dramatically burning the papers, but it was cool seeing Jin say, like, I'm not your son, I'm the ghost. And yeah, Lord Shimura hated that. He was not with it. After some time in his cell, Kinji, the same merchant who helped him sneak in to save Taka, helps Jin break free, but he also tells Jin that Yuna tracked the Khan's location. And as Jin is trying to escape, this game's biggest betrayal takes place. When you choose a horse at the beginning of the game, it says, are you sure this is the horse you want? It's the companion you're gonna have for the rest of the game. Lie. That is the biggest lie they have ever told. Might I add, Kage, my black horse, is my favorite horse that I've ever used in any game ever, because the bond him and Jin have is great to see, and it's beautiful to see. Whether it's between missions or the subtle dialogue, like one day we'll take a peaceful ride together, it just makes the next scene even more gut-wrenching and horrible and sad to watch or to play through. Because as Jin escapes onto his horse, the horse is shot. And after a long journey of the horse fighting to stay alive, the music, everything about this scene, the music is swelling, the horse is limping, like trying its best to get Jin where he needs to go, like carrying out this last final mission for him. The horse finally collapses, and Jin apologizes, saying, like, you were a good horse, Kage, like, I'm sorry I couldn't protect you in the end. As the screen fades to white and the title of Act 3 fades in, which is just Kill the Khan. And I love that transition to Act 3, because at this point it's like, no more bullshit. Like, we're going to end this war right now, because too many people have been lost in Act 2. For it to end that way, it was just beautifully done, I think, by this game. The thing I will say about Act 3 is definitely the shortest act of the game. Act 2 was very long in comparison, but I do think Act 3 is the shortest, if I do remember correctly. Maybe I just played it the fastest because I had all the collectibles at that point almost. After burying Kage, Jin is able to walk the rest of the way to the Kin Sanctuary to meet up with Yuna, where he sees that the Mongols have destroyed everything. And I love that the further along you get in the story, the less beautiful the environment is. In contrast to the sunny skies and the beautiful trees of Act 1, we now have this barren, burned down landscapes and the dark, snowy skies. There's like no trees in one portion of Act 3. There's this like field where there's no trees. There's just no animals, no deer, just the hogs that like absolutely harass you in the game randomly. Or the boar that harass you in the game. There's just nothing. Even the flowers that you collect are like burned and shriveled up. And not only is the place burned, but Jin realized that the Khan figured out how to replicate his poison and has been using it on innocent people. much to the horror of Jin. This is, like I said, that's why the poison was going to bite him in the ass, because now the Mongols have it, and the archers can also shoot you with the poison, and you have to heal yourself in order to get rid of the poison. And like I said, this is a direct consequence of Jin going against his honor, where the Jin of Act 1 would have probably been deeply conflicted by what ended up happening. Act 3 Jin is as ruthless as ever, and even though the Mongols have the poison now, Jin also has the poison, and Jin knows that he is Tsushima's last hope, but not jinsakai, but the ghost is Tsushima's last hope. After being seen by the Mongols, he is shot by a Mongol archer and poisoned, and Jin is once again nursed back to health by Yuna. And at this point, Jin just needs to marry this woman, because he's been saved not once, not twice, but 3 times by Yuna, like from the brink of death. Ring the wedding bells at this point. Anyways, we learn that the Khan has retreated to Port Izumi, and Yuna and Jin are able to take over Jogaku Temple, which becomes their new base. They pretty much blow up an entire frozen lake to do so, so I think they definitely deserve to have that fort themselves. In order to meet up with their allies, Jin and Yuna need to infiltrate Fort Kaminodake, I think that's how you pronounce it, I'm not entirely sure. And with the help of Yuna's old friend, they're able to do so. Jin and Yuna are able to scope the scenery out of Port Izumi and see that the Khan is housing tons of poison, and realize that the Khan is going to use it to take over all of Japan, not just Tsushima. So we really have to get a move on. Like, it is go time right now more than ever. The best plan of action they think of is to wait for a storm and make the Khan flee to his ships for shelter, and Jin would end up blowing the ships up. And before the final battle, Jin decides to sneak into Lord Shimmer's castle to leave him a note asking for help. And Yuna doesn't really like the plan for obvious reasons. She doesn't really like Lord Shimmer. He has given her no qualities to like, but Jin does it anyways. Yuna then gives Jin a new horse. Still can never replace Kage. Rest in peace, buddy. Jin then rides to Lord Shimmer's castle, sneaks in, and leaves his message. Mind you, let me come back to this point, because not only does Kage die, but the horse that you have to use until you get the new horse that like Yuna gives you is this like rinky-dink horse with like patches of skin. Like I wish I like, poor horse. I love that guy. He got me through some tough times, but the horse they give you in comparison to this, like the beautiful whatever black, white, or whatever color horse they like allow you to have, it is like insulting almost. I feel bad. That horse, like, more power to him. But anyways, back to my point. That popped into my head and I didn't write it in the script, so I just want to come back to that. So back to what I was saying. Don't remember what it was. Hold on. Jin then rides to Lord Shimmer's castle, sneaks in, and then leaves his message. And at first it seems like Lord Shimmer is still being an asshole and won't help Jin, because Jin is just a big traitor or whatever Lord Shimmer thinks. He has no honor, whatever. And he calls out to his guards and says the ghost is here, but then it looks like he's actually like thinking about what Jin is writing in the letter. He's maybe feels a little bad, maybe feels like he actually should help. Like I said, Act 3 was quick. In my opinion, Act 3 was very quick, especially with like the big story points. Like, they were very like in quick succession of each other. But the final battle is here, ladies and gentlemen. Now, I will say, playing this for the however manyth time, the final battle is not as intense as I remembered. Like, it felt way too easy. I mean, but I still liked it. It just didn't feel like a final battle. I think the stakes could have definitely been elevated. I think the difficulty could have been elevated. I think the set pieces could have been elevated a bit, but it was still very fun to play through. The music is amazing as always though, just like everything else in this game. Kenji uses his siege weapons to begin the attack, and at first Jin realizes that Lord Shimmer probably is not gonna come. But in the distance later on, you hear this battle cry followed by everyone's like, what the heck was that? The fort doors open and Lord Shimura, and like the only cool moment he ever has in the game, emerges from the doors, draws his sword. The samurai are flooded behind him, and he just like yells for Tsushima. I don't remember what he yelled. I think he said for Tsushima or something like that. And I thought that was like the coolest scene in the game.
Khotun Khan. Tsushima! No mercy!
I love that scene. I don't know why. It just gave me chills seeing Lord Shimura with all the samurai appearing and like for Jin, even though he was saying how much Jin was a traitor and he hates the ghost. But anyways, I always love when games do that at the end of the game, when you see all of your allies. So like Masako and Norio and Sensei Ishikawa showing up for the final battle, and then Lord Shimura just tying it all together. I just love the way everything comes together. And like all of your friends, your allies are here, except for Ryuzo because he is dead. But long story short, because you know how it goes if you play at the end of the game, Jin pushes the Khan back to his ship, fights fights off a bunch of Mongols and is able to fight the Khan. And I like how the fight is broken up into different parts while also making you fight other Mongols at the same time, and also to destroy the ship with explosives. Maybe I just leveled up way too much, but honestly the final fight was not hard at all. But it was still satisfying as he beheads the Khan, who is trying to tell Jin, oh, someone's gonna come after me one day. I'm not the last one. Like, you will suffer forever, and there's always gonna be torment. We don't want to hear it. Cut it. Cut it off. We don't want to hear it. I also love that you finally get to see the Khan flustered and scared for once, which he's normally very in control of every situation, but he is very much sure that he is going to die and he is terrified. Jin then leaves him to burn on the ship. Well, he's dead, so just leaves the ship to burn. And I also love the way that Yuna runs up to him after the battle as Jin's like limping and just falls into her arms. Love is in the air, you guys. I need it to happen. I need the Yuna Jin ship, Juna, Yin, whatever it's called. I need it. I know they aren't like together, but come on. So here they are, Mr. and Mrs. Ghost return to the Allies, and Jin also learns that Lord Shimura has summoned him, probably to talk about the good old days, probably bring him back into the castle, adopt him, you know. So they meet up and go on this nice little horse ride. They even help a man push his wagon out of the mud together. They talk about the good old days. The man also tells them that the Ghost army is forming and they are trying to push the remaining Mongols out of Tsushima. Lord Shimura is not happy. He's saying that Jin is showing people it's okay to fight back against order. In this case, I think it is, especially if the order isn't helping and you need to kind of take matters into your own hands and protect yourself. He then shares that Jin and the Sakai clan are being disbanded and that he has been ordered to collect Jin's head by the shogun. So yeah, that's he's basically here to kill Jin, and he summoned him to do so. He thought, like, I'm thinking, like, did he think that Jin would be okay with that? Think that Jin would submit, turn himself in? No, that wouldn't make sense. But anyways, they both sit and reflect, Jin writing the last words of Clan Sakai, and they begin their standoff, ready to duel. And it's at this point you realize that the final boss is not the Mongols or the Khan, but tradition and family. And Lord Shimura, the person we started this journey with, is trying to end the journey. And after all that we did, literally ended an entire Mongol invasion, saved an entire island of Tsushima, all of Japan, this is still the outcome that has to come to, because the honor and the code of the samurai is just something that can't be overstated, I guess, in the eyes of Lord Shimura and the Shogun. Obviously, Lord Shimura gets smacked because Jin is who Jin is, the ghost. Jin is him. He did that. He sure did. And it's at this point that you get a choice. Honor Lord Shimura with a proper death, showing that you have some honor, or throw away your past and any honor that you may have had by sparing him and fully becoming the ghost. Now, for me personally, I was not trying to make Lord Shimura happy and honor him, so I spared him because I think in this sense narratively that makes the most sense, as when Jin leaves, he puts the mask on, fully donning the ghost persona, like he's fully the ghost now, like there's no going back, and this is what we've been building up to this point. I have never played the other option of killing Lord Shimura because every time I do it, I get mad and just want to be the ghost and see him not be happy with me. It just makes sense that that's who Jin is slowly becoming over time, so it makes sense that he would be the ghost. And obviously it's like a hard decision that Jin has to make, but it's the decision that has been leading up to be made at that point of the game. So it's such a powerful moment seeing Jin throw everything in his past away and just becoming this ghost, this vengeful spirit against his family's wishes, maybe even his father. He's kind of completely forgotten about that at this point. Not forgotten, but it's become second saddle to the ghost. I don't know if that made sense. But after the game ends with Jin on his own in his base, which in my ending was like this little rundown shed, but we moved, did what had to be done. He meets Yuna, who discusses their next steps and decides they should split up in order to drive out the Mongols faster. And like, I'm not entirely sure how a sequel could come from this, but a sequel for this game is coming. Maybe Jin and Yuna have some issue with Lord Shimura, or maybe they meet on the mainland somewhere. Or the Khan did say someone would take his place, so maybe like his successor or his son. And there is a DLC to this game, which is the Iki Island DLC, that I haven't even played yet. I played the beginning of it. I never finished it. I played it like when it came out. I don't know why I didn't finish it. I think I got really busy and forgot about it, because then I got a PlayStation 5. And I never got Ghost of Tsushima again on the PlayStation because I didn't think about it. There was just a lot of other games that I wanted to try out on the PS5. But I think that I would like to do a playthrough on this channel of the DLC. I think that'd be really fun, especially since this video is going to take a lot of time and effort. I kind of just want to have fun with something like that. In conclusion, what makes this an amazing game, I think for sure, is the immersion first and foremost. This game makes you feel everything. And when I tell y'all I was inconsolable about that damn horse, I meant that. I was sick to my stomach at times. I was on my feet jumping at times. I was cheering at times. I was laughing. I cried a few times. I'm also an emotional person, so like, I don't know. But also what makes an amazing game is characters that you care about and hate. Not every villain needs to be understandable or likable or have redeeming qualities. The Khan is pure evil and has no redeeming qualities. Ryuzo chose the wrong path. Yeah, you can feel bad for him, but I still hate him, and that's okay. You care about Lady Masako, you care about Sensei Ishikawa, you care about Tomoe even though she's gone down this wrong path. You care about Jin and his past and this path towards honor that he's leaving behind. He's leaving behind his past, his family. Everything that he's grown up thinking is basically being destroyed right in front of, like, is basically being debunked, I guess is the word to use, right in front of his eyes. But lastly, what makes a good game is entirely up to the player. Obviously, not everyone's gonna love every game that someone else does. Not everyone's gonna hate a game that someone else does, but this game does an amazing job at catering to what a majority of people would have wanted. It scratches a certain itch that a lot of gamers have had for a long time. A samurai Assassin's Creed game. I think it has opened the door for a lot of games like Rise of the Ronin, a game that I played recently, reminded me a lot of Ghost of Tsushima. It's the same way that I think that Assassin's Creed is an amazing game. Some people hate that game, but some people think Valhalla is an amazing game, and they're wrong. But this game knows its audience, it played to its audience, and it delivered to its audience. What makes something good to someone is subjective. In this case, this game checked every box that it needed to check. Obviously, there was a few flaws in the game, but overall, I just think it did an amazing job with what the task that was at hand. And if a sequel does come out, I will definitely be playing it. I am ready. I will pre-order it. I don't even pre-order games, but I will pre-order that sequel. I don't care. Like, I'm so excited for it, and it's because of the work that the developers did on this game. They did an amazing job. Obviously, this video may be a little disjointed compared to my other ones. It may not turn out very good. I hope it does, because it took a long time to do it. I've been filming this for about 2 hours. I'm very tired. I haven't eaten. I'm delusional. Send help. My roommates keep walking in, and I have to keep pretending that I'm not doing anything, even though there's a giant camera sitting in front of my face. But like I said, the next video I want to do is either going to be an Iki Island DLC, like playing through it, or maybe another game review. I'm not sure yet. I need to take a break. I'm very busy with school and stuff and basketball. I definitely do want to keep uploading videos. I really hope that you guys enjoyed this video because a lot of effort was put into it. And like I said, I'm always doing this for fun anyway, so you don't have to agree with anything that I said. You don't have to even have like cared about anything that I said. So if you stuck around for this long, I very much enjoy it. If you stuck around for this long, I appreciate it. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to like, subscribe, leave a comment. Comments are definitely the most helpful. If you don't like and subscribe, you don't have to do anything, honestly, but the comments I love reading the comments. I love seeing if you guys disagree or agree with me. I don't know what how to end this video. The script is ended, so I've been rambling for like 3 minutes. With that being said, I will see you guys in the next video. Thank you for watching. I don't know how to end the video. What the dude, what do I don't even remember what I say at the end of my videos. Hold on. Oh, I always end them awkwardly. Okay. See you guys in the next video. Goodbye.